Hello, you are listening to the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. Your host, Erica Sacosio, invites you to join her community of passionate and inspiring leaders in the ECE field, where she discusses, reflects, and shares the best ways to invest in our children, families, teachers, and community. Because after all, we know they are the heartbeat of any successful program.
Emergencies can happen at any moment. And when they do, being prepared can make all the difference. It honestly could be life or death. In today's episode, we're going to discuss how to prepare your child care center for the unexpected. Whether it's a natural disaster, a medical emergency, or a lockdown situation, the right planning can really save lives. Yours, your staff, and the children in your care. So join us as we talk today and explore why preparation is key and how you can ensure your school is ready for anything. We are joined with my friend Marie from Florida. She is an expert in the area of emergency preparedness. I'm going to let her talk a little bit about herself. She is absolutely delightful. Welcome to the show, Marie O'Connell.
Thank you so much, Erica. And I can't tell you what an honor it is to be here with you tonight and what a pleasure it has been to get to know you. There's so much heart in caring for children, and that shows through in all of the people I meet, and especially in you, because you're not only trying to take care of those kids in your area, but help others do the same. So I appreciate what you do every day and what all these folks do when they're out educating our youngest children and taking care of them, teaching them well, etc. Myself, I'm very honored to be the executive director of the From Cradle to College Foundation. And what we are specializing in at this point in time is a program called PEARLS, and you see that on my shirt. It stands for Preschool Emergency Alert Response Learning System. And we started our program back in 2017, 2018. My background has been a lot in human resources, running businesses, HR work, risk management, all sorts of things that I've learned so many different areas and aspects of business that has been very helpful to me when I'm working with the childcare providers in the state of Florida. It's a blessing to do what I do every day. There's no doubt about it. I appreciate the opportunity, and what I want to try to generate in some folks tonight is maybe that they can do the same thing. We want to find others to carry the torch in other states to do what we do. And exactly what PEARLS does is go to these early education centers, and we work directly with the staff to show them options on how to protect against different disasters, as you mentioned. As we all know, when a disaster occurs, it's no time to be making a plan, right? It's time to be implementing a plan.
Yeah.
So everything we talk about is a tough topic, and we know that. We talk all the way up to active shooting, and that's a term that when any of us hear, we kind of cringe, right?
Yeah.
We kind of cringe. So particularly when you're talking about young children. But we started our program, as I mentioned, 2017, 2018. We implemented it in one county, and then we were very fortunate to be funded by the state of Florida to carry this throughout the state. And we, again, try to raise awareness, try to get a really tough conversation going. Having an outside party come in and talk about these things is sometimes easier than, the director or someone that actually is there every day having to say, hey, we need to sit down and talk about this.
Yeah.
There's so many plans in place, but this one is one that probably isn't always being discussed.
Yeah, well, I think it probably is now. So in the 25 years that I've run a center, the last 4 or 5, part of our licensing now is to put together a emergency preparedness plan that you have to send in, submit with your licensing. So I think, unfortunately, with the climate and the way that things have changed, it's part of your licensing, and probably most states, and I would say the states where it's not, it's certainly coming down the bend. So it's conversations we have to have and be prepared. So let's start with the basics. Like, why is it so important for childcare centers to have a detailed emergency plan in place? And what are the potential consequences if you're not prepared?
Well, Erica, the truth of the matter is you have the most vulnerable children in your care. Our high schoolers, middle schoolers, and even elementary schoolers are getting these types of training all the time, particularly since Uvalde. And that's another word that raises, goosebumps on all of us, I know.
Yeah.
But those children are receiving this type of information, as are the teachers, and the entities themselves are oftentimes protected by armed resource officers. Obviously, we know that's not the case with our earliest education centers. Guns aren't allowed in most states. I'm not aware of all states. And then again, we've got those young children. So if you don't have a plan, and that means to me, if you don't have a plan, then your brain is not going to be able to function, because you think about something happening that's unpleasant, your adrenaline comes up, your body starts to react to that. So that brain has to have a place to go. And what we call that is having options in your brain that are like something that could come directly to the front when you need them. I always reference CPR training, because that's something that you all have. If you see someone who needs CPR, you know what to do. You do it quickly, and you might well save that person's life, right? Yeah. Whereas someone who doesn't have CPR training, they're going to call 911, but those precious moments are lost, and that person may expire instead of being saved. Same thing with any kind of emergency that comes into the school. You've got to be thinking and acting quickly, because law enforcement will be on their way to help you. There's no doubt. Yeah. But those moments that pass before they get there are the ones that you need to be helping yourself. So that's why having a plan is so critical.
Yeah. And there's so many emergencies. So I can remember, again, being in the field for a really long time. My center is right next to an airport, and I was at work when 9/11 happened. Oh, and we didn't really have cell phones the way we do now. And the phones at the school started ringing, and parents were frantic, and we're like, what's going on? We didn't have a TV in the school. And so we learned through phone what was going on, and, being close to an airport, parents were obviously very concerned. And so I can remember, being in that own situation. And then, I'm in Rhode Island, Connecticut's right around the corner. I also remember being at work when Sandy Hook happened. So, these are just things I can just immediately think of during my time as a director that have impacted the way that I think about my school. And for many of us in the field, particularly the family-owned businesses, many times it's your husband, your wife, your niece, your nephew that are in these buildings. For me, my entire family within one of the 3 buildings. So, of course, I take the safety of my students honestly as I would my own family, but truly it is my own family that's in that building too, and we have to be prepared. So what are the first steps, right? Let's say we don't have a plan in action. What are the first steps that childcare directors should take to prepare for an emergency?
The biggest thing that you have that can help you, besides having that plan in place so you know what to do, is your environment. What you want to do is take a long, hard look at your environment. You want to see how your doors open and close. You want to see how you can lock your doors. You want to see how you can secure doors. You want to see what exits you have. Because in spite of the fact that you have small children, there are occasions when evacuation could be the best path, right? Some schools that are very large, there's no doubt that at one end of the building, they could be doing one thing, and at the other end of the building, be doing totally the opposite, right? All based on the location of the event, and of course the ages and capabilities of the children always plays into everything that, in your day, not just what I'm talking about. So understanding what about your environment can help you. Are you able to lock down those doors and barricade those so that you could stay in the room, but always wanting to keep the next option open? So, for instance, I was just at a center last night, and we were talking about what could you do in these very specific rooms. Well, they had doors at the back that they could exit the room, but they also were concerned about getting across to the other building before something was to occur. So I said, so here's what you can do. You can lock and barricade those doors that you have. And then if that door starts to move, now you evacuate.
The back,
right?
yeah.
You always want to keep something open
Have
to
a
do
second.
that, right?
Okay.
That's not always the case. Everyone doesn't have doors to get out of their the back, right? So they have to look around their room and see what they can do, because the odds are slim that you're going to evacuate going out into a hallway, right? Because you'd probably be going into the direction of the danger.
Yeah.
So that is just so, so, so important to really understand. And when I say understand your doors, what way they open? What way they close? What sort of closure do you have on the door? Is it a knob? Is it a handle? Do you have hinges? If you have hinges on your doors, you can use a piece of fire hose to keep a door from opening. You can get a piece of fire hose cut to the length, and always first responders are ready to help with these kinds of things, right? Cut to the length of that hinge, and if you slide that over that hinge, it will keep that door from opening. So it's things like this that can really, really help you. And we know budgets are tight. Nobody's built a $20,000 list, armor our building into their budget this year, I'm sure. So we always try to look for things that you can either get for free or that are very inexpensive that can help you. But that is going to be the main thing. I would say the second thing would be to make sure that you do anything you can to work with your children to teach them to respond to certain words in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
So that if an event occurs, and of course, age appropriate if they're old enough to understand, et cetera, they can be a part of a plan, right? And they can help you. They can be cooperative with you rather than necessarily just being hysterical, because they trust you all so much. You're with them all day. So if you can get something in a very friendly way, never frightening. We always say we don't frighten kids in any way, but work with those kids to do something along the line of what you do with a fire drill. They know what to do, right?
Yeah.
Same idea.
That's good advice. So how do you assess what kind of emergencies could affect your center? Because you have to have these different scenarios, and you can't be prepared for everything, but is there a way to assess what could be an immediate? So I would say if you're near a beach, there's a chance there could be a flood, right? Or, those types of things. So, what kind of emergencies can we assess for?
Yeah, I would say the geographical type of emergencies, the earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, as you're describing. You don't always get warning with those, but you traditionally do, right?
Yeah.
So if you have some sort of a, I think I mentioned to you when I was there with you in Florida that, I live near the coast and I had some flooding issues. So obviously I should know that at any point in time I could have a flood if there's a hurricane, et cetera, right? So if you have, if you're in an area like that, then you just need to automatically have that plan, right? Things like, perpetrators outside of your building, that's not something you necessarily think is going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to have that plan, right? Because you want to be thinking quickly. Again, I don't want you to freeze. That's the last thing you want to do. When you have anything happening like that, you want to be thinking quickly. And all I'm going to say about it is if you have a perpetrator outside is do not ever open your doors.
Yeah.
I don't care who's outside of that door. Do not open your doors, because you've got danger outside and they're not inside. But as far as, active shooting and things of that escalated nature, what I would say is the biggest concern for those in your field would be parents who perhaps are in custody issues or something of that nature that, may raise something to a certain level, and maybe not necessarily to shooting, but to being disruptive to your organization, in which case, you would want to be making sure you were sharing information of what you did know, with those who could be in contact with that person, because it's important to use your gut instincts in these situations, so you can kind of feel things coming with that sort of a situation. And it's sad, but it's true that parents sometimes will use their children against each other when they're mad at each other, right?
Yeah.
But the actual assessing to know if you could possibly have an active shooting, there's no way.
Yeah.
The only way that we can say about anything about active shootings is we know they're likely going to continue. There's no reason to think they're not. And we never know where it's going to be.
Yeah.
We never know how it's going to unfold. So we can't ever assume it won't be where we are. That's the reality. Right?
Yeah.
There was a shooting in Austin, Texas in 2021. My son lives in Austin, Texas, and it's huge. It's a huge city. It was a half a mile from where he lived.
Yeah.
So the reality of it is we just don't know. So that's why it's so important to have your brain trained that you immediately know how to start making those decisions and taking that action. Because again, those first several minutes before law enforcement gets there
Yeah.
are absolutely critical.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. It's not even just in your centers, but even when you're out in public,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Being certainly aware of when you're in a space, how do I get out? Where are those
Mhm.
things? Because again, I'm from Rhode Island. The Station nightclub fire happened in my state. One of the biggest fires in the country, right? So being aware when you go to these public settings, how do you get in? How do you get out? What kind of threats could happen? I mean, music concerts, movie theaters, the mall, like it could anywhere and anytime. So, being prepared and being aware, like you said, following your gut. If something seems like it's off, get the heck out of Dodge.
Right.
Get out of there if you can. Get out of
The
there if you can.
important thing to remember, right? And exactly, get out of it as fast as you can in the
Yeah.
safest way you can. But the important thing to remember is that our guts only work if we're paying attention.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm going to put a little beeper in on this thing and say, everybody needs to remember that those distract us and we
Yeah.
don't know what's going on around us, right?
Yeah.
Particularly as you talked about moving around in public.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you are aware of your true surroundings, not necessarily engaged
Yeah.
in that. So
So in your experience, what are some of these key components of a solid emergency preparedness plan? Can you walk us through it? Like what should be included in the plan?
yeah, we talk about three very specific options that you can use. And I think if you kind of take a look at the trainings around the country, we have a little bit different names, et cetera, but everybody's pretty much saying these are the things that you can do. We use ELC because there are early learning coalitions in the state of Florida that are very much affiliated, so that we feel that's easy to remember. Evacuation is one option. Lockdown and barricade is another option. When we talk about locking down, we always say you need to be barricading because you want to buy as much time as you can. You want to keep that person away from you because the last thing you want to do is to have them in your space, right? Because that gives them the best opportunity that they could possibly have to carry out what they came to do. And then the last is to counter, and that is if they get into your space. And we talk seriously with folks about taking self-defense classes because it's not only what you know how to do, it's what you are willing to do, right?
Yeah.
And you find yourself in a situation, everybody in the child education business is kind-hearted, loving,
Yeah.
gentle, right? That's why you do what you do. You have a passion for children. And we're talking about putting you in a situation where you could seriously have to injure someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the mama bear is also there too, I
Mhm.
always say. So this adrenaline you would feel in a situation like this would be so key combined with training
Yeah.
and, planning and actually practicing what you're
Yeah.
going to be doing. So you have that immediate understanding. And I
Yeah.
always tell everyone, if this is what ends up happening, you end up countering, you go as hard as you can at it and you don't stop until it's over.
Yeah.
There you
That's
go.
that's so true too. Because when I think about when I had my daughter Haley a very long time ago, 26 years ago, me and her dad got separated. She was about 18 months old. And the first thing I did was I went to go take martial arts classes because I said, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, it's just me and this little baby in our house. Like, what if something happened? And so I took it for a long period of time. But yes, it's very beneficial to know how to protect yourself and those you love to the best of your ability. So I agree that is a great tool as well to have in your belt. Is God forbid you do got to protect yourself.
Well, and it gives you the confidence to know that what you're about to do is going to make a difference.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's the key. You know that your actions are going to change the outcome. And honestly, Erica, most active shootings in our country are over in 10 minutes or less, with the majority actually being 5 minutes or less.
wow,
So what we need to focus on is surviving for that amount of time, right?
yeah,
And how we want to plan on doing that is either getting away from the danger
yep,
or keeping the danger away from us. And if need be, then we go down to that part where we actually try to get control of that person. But I always tell everyone, I'm not suggesting you walk up and right hook anyone, right?
Sure.
Right. We want you to use what we call strategic moves to try to get them under control. And we strongly encourage, this is something that I think is everyone would really benefit from if they understand, having fire extinguishers.
Mm-hmm.
Because with fire extinguishers, you can shoot from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's trained to use them. And if you get that in their face, it goes in their eyes and their nose and in their mouth, it's now in their respiratory system.
Yeah, that'll slow them down for sure.
Well, they're going to have a reaction.
Yeah.
And they're also now going to be doing this to try to defend themselves.
Defensive. Yeah. Wow, that's a great tip. Yeah. So training staff is obviously a critical part of preparation. What are some effective ways to train your team to handle emergencies, and how can you ensure that they stay prepared?
Well, it needs to be obviously in a group setting. What I always say when we have these, when we work with the groups, we do a 2-hour training. And basically what we do is get this conversation going. And the further we get into the training, the more feedback we start getting, right? So as you have these conversations, you want to be listening, because your teachers understand their rooms. They understand their kids, right? So ultimately the plan will be, finalized by your leadership team, but you want input, from your staff about, well, how about this is the way my door does this, or that way, that kind of thing. So getting the group together, having this important conversation and saying, we're doing this because we want to be proactive. We want to be prepared. And rest assured, I would always say, because I always say, all with the hopes we never need it.
Yeah.
Right. But knowledge is power. And we want to be able to say that we know what we would do in an emergency situation like this. So take that group together, and then the leadership could take the notes away from that and start to pull together a plan. And then you test it, you try to test it and see if it's working for you. And if not, you tweak it, right? So you want to always just keep that plan moving along. And then, as I mentioned, just continue to practice it on a regular basis. It depends on your staff, how often you need to practice it. But I would say keep it fresh in everyone's mind all the time. And don't forget the folks who are new hires and or substitutes on a regular basis.
So what special considerations should we have when we're making these emergency plans for children who have special needs or disabilities?
And that is always an important question. It absolutely is. We want to make certain that we have developed our plan so that they will be able to be part of it, but it won't be extremely frightening to them, if you know what I'm trying to say. And again, whenever we talk about working with your children, it's always in a non-frightening way. We talk about playing four corners, just to teach them skills, to go along with the words that you choose. But absolutely, I would suggest with anyone who is in the special needs situation, you have something to occupy their time if this is going on, right? Something that they're familiar with, something that's comforting to them. And I know that the teachers who work with children like that, first of all, they're a godsend. I will say that, because those children are also a godsend. They're special in their very, 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 very own way, right? So we want to make sure that the person who understands them is able to find a way to communicate with them and to try to protect them in these situations. Absolutely. Because they may not be moving as quickly as the others, et cetera. Right. And the infants are a similar situation, right? Obviously the infants aren't going anywhere on their own either. So you really have to look at your environment in particular to do with those situations. I always suggest with the cribs to get the babies out of the front cribs, put as many cribs up front as you can to get in the way, right? Get in the way.
So we often hear the phrase like hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Can you share any real life examples of how a well-prepared childcare center successfully handled an emergency?
I actually can.
I figured you
believe it or
could.
not, there's a story that was shared with me at a conference years ago. And she was actually a little bit braver than I would like for her to have been, but it did work. It was a faith-based center, and a man came in to their location, and he said that he was there to take care of the babies. which basically he was telling them that, he was there to hurt the babies. So everybody, of course, locked down and barricaded as soon as they knew what was going on, or at least locked down. I can't swear that they barricaded. And she actually talked him down. And I'm going to tell you that is nothing I would ever encourage. I'm being perfectly honest. In her case, it did work. But she got the person outside because he kept talking about his God versus, because it was faith-based. And so she asked him, could he take her somewhere and show her some information? And he did take her outside. And I'm telling you that when he came back from looking in his trunk to get something to show her, he had razor blades on his hand and was ready to use them on her. And I guess when he saw her, he changed his mind and he took them off of his hand and he laid them in her hand. And then law enforcement was there, but nothing to do with with everything else. She barricaded everyone else. She was too brave in my book, but it did work. So I when she told me that story, she was in tears, and it had been years. As far as anyone actually stopping a situation like an active shooter, fortunately in the state of Florida, and I'm not aware of any active shooters get into any childcare centers. However, we do know there was an event in Thailand that was very, very traumatic. And unfortunately, there have been some, I'll call them threats, some, thrown out there about that. Because the unfortunate part about these folks is they're looking for a show, right? They want to make a big name for themselves. But I would say that even when you have someone outside who's not someone you're familiar with, and people are recognizing that and then starting to take action, that's important. And you're already doing those things. You're seeing a car in the parking lot that you don't think is familiar. So you immediately start to say, okay, I'm going to check that out and make sure that everything's okay. Those are things that are outside of your baseline. And that's very important to be making sure you're recognizing. I hope not to have a story for you anytime soon about how something actually turned out at a early education center, but unfortunately it could be.
So as we wrap things up, is there what are some critical things that childcare centers should do immediately after an emergency to ensure that the safety of the well-being of the children and staff is okay?
Yeah, and that's so important. I strongly encourage once the event is over and law enforcement has taken, control of the person, obviously you're going to have parents that are going to know about this. I mean, obviously, I know we probably all have policies for them not to come to the location, which is important because that's just more chaos, right? Around the situation. Speaking of that, I didn't really say this, but if you are ever in a situation where someone is coming into the room with you, chaos is something that's going to help you. A lot of noise, a lot of movement in the room is something that's going to help you because it's going to distract this person from being able to think. So we can talk more in depth about that at another time, but I just wanted to throw that out there because that's very important. But I would say we want to, of course, make sure we have a reunification plan on how we would get that back together. Sometimes the police handle that about how the parents will receive the kids or the sheriffs, whichever are involved. But you want to make sure you're able to get those children, in a calm manner to their parents. Again, I would say something that would calm the children down, whatever you are aware of. Maybe it's certain songs, maybe it's certain activities or something that would help calm those children down. Being in the midst of them, of course, is part of that because, again, they trust you. Medically, making sure everyone's okay, right, is your first thing that you really need to go to. Because if law enforcement comes to you, rest assured they're going to step over someone who's hurt to get to that person, right? And that means they're doing their job. So I hope everybody understands that. Because until they stop that person, there's going to be more harm, right? So I would say always try to have medic kits. I would encourage everyone to take a course. It should be free in your state or any state we're talking to, called Stop the Bleed. It's a Department of Health course, and it basically teaches you how to pack a wound. So in case it was an extreme circumstance, that would be good training to have. And then again, just, obviously finding that plan on when you feel like you can reopen normally and bring everybody back in and, have a safe environment again that everyone feels like is safe. And of course, that's going to start with your staff,
Yeah.
right? They're going to need to feel safe, right? And then the kids are going to need to feel safe. So it's a big adjustment, a lot to get past and recover from.
Well, thank you so much for such interesting information and helpful tips. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you for all that you're doing to keep all our little ones safe. And more states need to have programs like yours, for sure. I hope that my state puts one in, because I think every state really needs one. And for those of you who are listening, we really appreciate you tuning in. I know today's episode wasn't as cheery as I normally am, but these are important topics that we need to talk about. I care about you. I want you to be safe. I want your loved ones to be safe. I want you to be protected. And so we have to have these sometimes hard conversations. If you want to learn more, I have great news to let you know. We are throwing our 2025 Early Childhood Empowerment Conference on May 2nd and 3rd at the Crown Plaza in Warwick. We will start putting out the links, and maybe we get to see my beautiful friend Marie there. So as always, remember, it's the little details that make a big impact on the success of your childcare business. That's all for today. Have a great day.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
So sorry.
Well, all the cute little kiddos have been picked up and it's time to go home. And that'll do it for another episode of the Childcare Director's Chair. Please leave a review so Erica knows the information is helping you to manage and improve your childcare centers. Remember to subscribe to get the latest episode from Erica's Childcare Director's Chair.